Friends, today's story is based on an incident that many people in India still talk about to this day. A story so strange, so terrifying, that an entire railway station remained abandoned for decades. This story was shared by one of our subscribers, Roma. Roma's maternal grandparents lived in West Bengal, and ever since she was a child, she would visit them at least once every year. When she was young, she heard whispers about a mysterious railway station, a station where people refused to travel after dark, a station where trains sped through without stopping, a station that had been shut down for nearly 40 years. At first, she thought it was just another ghost story, but after hearing the same tale from multiple people, and later researching it herself, she realized something unsettling. The station was real, and so were many of the events connected to it. The station's name was Begunkodor Railway Station. According to local residents, strange things happened there after sunset. Even after the station was reopened in modern times, employees worked only during the day. As evening approached, everyone left. Nobody wanted to stay there after dark. But why? What had happened at that station? To answer that question, I will tell you the story exactly as Roma described it. My name is Roma. This incident happened when I was very young. One year, my family and I were traveling to my grandmother's house in West Bengal. Our train was running several hours late. We were supposed to arrive before sunset, but darkness had already covered the sky. I was bored from sitting for so long. While wandering around the coach, I suddenly heard a loud voice. Begunkodor Railway Station is approaching. Close all windows and doors immediately. I stopped in confusion. That didn't make any sense. Whenever a train approached a station, people usually opened windows. Why was everyone being told to close them? I turned to my mother. Mom, why are they closing the windows? But she simply told me to stay quiet. A strange silence soon spread throughout the coach. Passengers stopped talking. Nobody looked outside. Even the atmosphere felt different. For nearly 10 minutes, everyone sat quietly as the train rushed through the darkness. Then suddenly, everything returned to normal. People began talking again, as if nothing had happened. Unable to control my curiosity, I asked my mother again. This time, an elderly man sitting across from us smiled. Because something on that route doesn't like noise, he said. My eyes widened. What do you mean? Who doesn't like noise? Before the man could answer, my mother interrupted. Please don't scare the child. The old man chuckled. Children should know the truth. Someday they'll learn it anyway. I immediately begged my mother to let him continue. After a moment, she finally agreed. The man leaned closer. Then he began telling me a story that would haunt me for the rest of my life. To understand what happened, we need to go back many years. Back to the year 1960, the year everything began. The old man took a deep breath before continuing. Everything began in 1960. At that time, Begunkodor Railway Station was considered a blessing for the surrounding villages. Transportation options were limited, and the station made travel much easier for thousands of people. Every day, passengers came and went. The station was always busy. Vendors sold tea and snacks. Children played near the platforms. Railway employees carried out their duties without concern. For several years, everything seemed normal. Then one night, something happened that changed the station forever. It was late in the evening. A train arrived at Begunkodor Station and stopped briefly. Several passengers stepped off. Among them was a woman wearing a white sari. She appeared to be alone. No family, no friends, no one waiting for her. She carried a small cloth bundle that seemed to contain all her belongings. The woman looked exhausted, weak, hungry. as if life itself had already taken everything from her. Instead of using the main station exit, she decided to walk along the railway tracks. It was a shortcut. The station entrance was farther away. Perhaps she wanted to reach her destination more quickly. The night was unusually dark. Streetlights were scarce in those days. Large portions of the tracks were covered in shadows. As the woman continued walking, she suddenly stumbled. Her body swayed. Then she collapsed directly onto the railway tracks. No one noticed. The area was deserted. There were very few people around, and because of the darkness, nobody could see her lying there. Whether she had fainted from exhaustion, hunger, or illness, nobody knew. But she never got back up. Minutes later, another train approached. The woman remained unconscious on the tracks. The roaring engine grew closer. The ground trembled violently. The steel rails screamed beneath the weight of the train. Yet she never moved. Perhaps she never even heard it coming. Then, in a matter of seconds, the train passed directly over her. The impact was horrific. When railway workers arrived the next morning, they discovered a gruesome scene. The woman's body had been torn apart. The sight was so disturbing that several workers immediately looked away. The station master was informed. Soon afterward, the police arrived. An investigation began. The woman's belongings were searched, but the small bundle contained only a few clothes. No identification, no letters, no documents, no clues. Days passed. No family member came searching for her. No one reported her missing. No one claimed the body. Eventually, the case was closed. Authorities assumed she had been a poor traveler. Perhaps she had taken her own life. Perhaps it had been a tragic accident. Either way, the matter was forgotten, or at least everyone thought it had been forgotten. Because only a few days later, something began appearing at the station after sunset. Something that should have been impossible. Something that would eventually turn Begunkodor Railway Station into one of the most feared locations in India. One night, the station master was working late inside his office. The station was nearly empty. Most passengers had already left. The only sounds were distant insects and the occasional wind moving across the tracks. Suddenly, he heard a woman's voice, soft, faint, calling from outside. The station master looked up from his paperwork. He stepped outside and scanned the platform. There were only a handful of people nearby. "Who called me?" he asked loudly. The passengers looked confused. "No one, sir." The station master frowned. Perhaps he had imagined it. Perhaps he was simply tired. He returned to his office and continued working. A few minutes later, a train arrived. The remaining passengers boarded. Soon the station became completely deserted. Now he was alone. Then the voice returned. This time, it sounded even closer. The station master slowly stood from his chair. A chill ran through his body, because deep inside, he knew someone was outside, waiting, watching. And whatever it wasn't human.
The station master remained frozen for a moment. The mysterious female voice had come again. This time, it sounded much closer. Slowly, he walked toward the office door, but instead of stepping outside, he peered through the small keyhole in the door. At first, everything looked normal. The empty platform, the silent tracks, the darkness stretching endlessly into the distance. Then ... Karma. He saw her, a woman in a white sari, walking slowly along the railway tracks. The station master's heart nearly stopped. For a second, he thought he was imagining things. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. She was still there. The woman moved at an unnatural pace, slow, silent, almost floating. Her long black hair covered most of her face. The white sari she wore appeared stained in several places. Dark patches covered parts of the fabric. Even from a distance, something felt terribly wrong about her. Then suddenly ... Karma. The woman stopped walking. The station master's breathing became heavy. His hands began to shake. Karma. A strange feeling crawled through his body, as if every instinct inside him was screaming one warning: run. Before he could react. Karma. The woman slowly turned her head and looked directly toward his office. The station master immediately stepped back from the door. His heart pounded violently inside his chest. How could she possibly know he was watching? The platform was dark. He was hidden inside the office. Yet somehow. Karma. She knew exactly where he was. Terrified, he quickly locked the office door from the inside. Then he sat silently behind his desk, trying to convince himself that none of this was real. A few seconds later. Karma. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from the office door. The station master's blood turned cold. Someone was outside. The knocking came again. Slow, patient, almost playful. Knock, knock, knock. He covered his mouth with both hands, not making a single sound. The knocking continued for several minutes. Then suddenly. Karma. It stopped. Complete silence filled the station. The station master remained motionless, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. Nearly 30 minutes passed. Finally, he gathered enough courage to leave. Grabbing his bag, he unlocked the office door and rushed outside. The platform was empty. No sign of the woman. No footprints. No sounds. Nothing. Without wasting another second, he ran toward the railway quarters where he lived with his wife. When he finally reached home, he was drenched in sweat. His wife immediately noticed something was wrong. "You look terrified," she said. "What happened?" The station master quickly drank a glass of water. Then he told her everything. The voice, the woman, the knocking on the office door. His wife listened carefully. Although she appeared calm, fear slowly appeared in her eyes. Maybe it was just a traveler asking for help, she suggested. But the station master shook his head. No, if someone needed help, they would have spoken. That thing outside never said a single word. His wife didn't argue. Deep down, she could see the fear in her husband's face, and she knew he wasn't lying. That night, neither of them slept peacefully. The next morning, the station master returned to work. The station was crowded again. Vendors were selling tea. Passengers filled the platforms. Children laughed as trains arrived and departed. Everything looked normal. For a moment, he even began convincing himself that the previous night had been nothing more than a nightmare. But as the day passed, another problem appeared. A shipment of important railway equipment was scheduled to arrive that evening. The station master was required to stay until it arrived. He couldn't leave early, and according to railway officials, Karma, the delivery train was already running several hours late. As sunset approached, the station master's fear returned, because deep down Karma, he knew exactly what would happen once darkness fell over. Begunkodor Railway Station again, and this time Karma. He wouldn't be alone when it happened. The station master spent the entire day feeling uneasy. He completed his work as quickly as possible. His only goal was to leave before darkness covered the station. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. The train carrying the railway equipment was delayed by several hours. Without that shipment, he couldn't leave. Railway rules required him to personally receive and secure the cargo. As evening approached, the station slowly became empty. Passengers disappeared. Vendors packed their belongings. One by one, everyone left. The station master watched them go with growing fear. Soon, he would be alone again, and he didn't want that. Not after what he had seen the previous night. Then he noticed a tea seller preparing to leave. An idea immediately came to his mind. "Wait," the station master called out. "Can you make me a cup of tea?" The tea seller nodded and prepared the tea. Instead of letting him leave, the station master began making small talk. He asked about business, about family, about the village, anything to keep the man there a little longer. The tea seller had no reason to refuse. After all, the station master was an important railway employee, so he stayed. Minutes passed. The station became even quieter. The sky darkened completely. The only sounds now were distant insects and the occasional gust of wind. The station master secretly felt relieved. At least tonight, he wasn't alone. Then suddenly Karma. The tea seller stopped speaking. His face turned pale. His eyes widened. He stared toward the railway tracks. S-sir ... Karma. The station master felt his stomach tighten. Slowly, he turned toward the tea cellar. What is it? The tea cellar pointed toward the darkness. What is that? The station master followed his finger and immediately felt cold all over. Far down the tracks ... Karma. A white figure stood motionless, watching them. The station master's worst fear had come true. Without saying another word, he grabbed the tea seller's arm. Come with me. The tea seller looked confused, but before he could ask questions, the station master dragged him toward the office. They rushed inside. The station master locked the door, then locked it again just to make sure. The tea seller stared at him. Sahab, what's going on? Why are we hiding? The station master took a deep breath. Then he told him everything. The mysterious voice, the woman on the tracks, the knocking on the door. The tea seller's face slowly lost all color. You knew about this? The tea seller shouted. And you still kept me here. I have children. What if something happens to me? The station master lowered his head. He knew the tea seller was right. He had brought another innocent person into danger. I'm sorry, he whispered. Before either man could say anything else ... Karma. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from the office door. Both men froze instantly. Their hearts pounded inside their chests. Neither dared to move. Neither dared to speak. Karma. The knocking continued. Karma. Slow, rhythmic, almost as if whoever was outside knew they were terrified. Then suddenly ... Karma. Silence. Several minutes passed. The tea seller carefully approached the door. With trembling hands, he looked through the keyhole. What he saw nearly made him collapse. The woman in the white sari was walking away along the tracks. Her long hair hung over her face. Her movements were unnatural, almost floating. The tea seller stumbled backward. His entire body was shaking. Now he believed every word the station master had told him. Hours passed. Neither man left the office. Neither man even spoke. They simply waited, praying for sunrise. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the station master whispered, I think she's gone. We should leave. The tea seller immediately shook his head. No, I'm not walking through those tracks. What if she finds me? The station master thought for a moment. Then he spoke. Come to my quarters. You can stay with my wife and me tonight. It's safer than staying here. The tea seller quickly agreed. Anything was better than remaining inside that office. The two men gathered their courage, then slowly opened the door. The platform was empty. The white woman was nowhere to be seen. Together, they hurried toward the railway quarters. But as they approached the station master's home ... Karma, something strange happened. The station master's wife opened the door before they could knock. Karma. She looked terrified. Her eyes were red from crying. And before anyone could speak ... Karma, she said something that made both men stop cold. She's here. The woman in white ... double quotes. I saw her too. And what she described next was far more terrifying than anything the station master had witnessed. So far, the station master and the tea seller stared at his wife in shock. What do you mean you saw her? He asked. His wife quickly pulled them inside and locked the door behind them. Her hands were trembling. Tears filled her eyes. For several seconds, she couldn't even speak. Finally, she took a deep breath and began telling them what had happened. After her husband had left for work, she spent most of the evening alone inside the railway quarters. The station was small, the quarters were isolated, and after hearing her husband's terrifying story the night before, she couldn't stop feeling anxious. As darkness fell, she stepped outside for some fresh air. At first, everything seemed normal. The railway tracks stretched into the distance. The night was quiet. The air was cold. Then she noticed something moving far away. A white figure, walking slowly along the tracks. At first, she couldn't tell what it was. But as it came closer ... Karma, her blood ran cold. It was a woman wearing a white sari. Her long black hair covered her face. She walked with slow, unnatural movements, almost gliding across the ground. The station master's wife immediately remembered what her husband had told her. The woman on the tracks, the woman who appeared after dark, the woman who knocked on doors. Terrified, she ran inside her quarters. She locked every door, every window. Then she sat on her bed, trying to calm herself. A few minutes later, calmer. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from the front door. Her heart nearly stopped. She remained completely silent. The knocking came again, louder this time. Knock, knock, knock. Still she refused to answer. Then suddenly calmer. Bang! The door shook violently. Someone was hitting it from outside. Again, and again, and again. The entire house seemed to tremble. For nearly 10 minutes, the pounding continued. The station master's wife sat frozen with fear. Tears streamed down her face. She didn't dare move. She didn't dare breathe. Then, just as suddenly as it had started calmer, the noise stopped. Complete silence returned. She waited, and waited, and waited, until finally, she heard footsteps moving away from the quarters. Only then did she allow herself to breathe again. When she finished telling the story, the station master felt a chill run down his spine. Now there was no doubt. Whatever was haunting the station wasn't targeting only him anymore. It knew where he lived. It knew about his wife. And somehow calmer. It seemed determined to reach them before anyone could discuss what to do next. The distant sound of a train whistle echoed through the night. The delayed railway shipment had finally arrived. The station master cursed under his breath. He still had to collect the cargo. His wife immediately grabbed his arm. "Please don't go. I'm scared." The tea seller nodded. "I'm not staying here alone either." The station master thought for a moment. Then he said, "Fine, we'll all go together. At least there would be people around the train. Perhaps that would keep them safe." The three of them walked toward the platform. Soon the train arrived. Railway equipment was unloaded. The station master supervised everything. But strangely calmer. Nothing happened. No white woman. No knocking. No voices. For the first time in days, the station master felt hopeful. Maybe the nightmare was over. Maybe whatever had haunted the station was finally gone. But he was wrong. Very wrong. Because only a few nights later, calmer, dozens of people would witness something impossible. Something so terrifying that rumors about Begunkodor Railway Station would spread across the entire region. And after that night calmer, nothing would ever be the same again. A few nights after the incident at the railway quarters, another delayed train was scheduled to pass through Begunkodor Station. The station master, his wife, a few vendors, and several railway workers were still present on the platform. The sky was dark. A cold wind moved across the empty tracks. Everyone was trying to convince themselves that the nightmare was finally over. Then suddenly calmer. A train whistle echoed through the darkness. The approaching train could be seen in the distance. Its bright headlights cut through the night. Everyone turned to watch it arrive. And that was when they saw her. A woman in a white sari, running beside the train. For a moment, nobody could believe what they were seeing. The train was moving at high speed, yet the woman was keeping pace with it effortlessly. Her long black hair flew behind her. Her white sari fluttered violently in the wind. And somehow calmer. She was smiling. The platform erupted in panic calmer. Several people screamed. Others dropped everything and started running. The station master felt his blood turn to ice, because he knew exactly who it was. The white sari woman. As the train drew closer, something even more horrifying happened. The woman suddenly accelerated. Within seconds, she overtook the speeding train. Then she disappeared into the darkness ahead. Nobody slept that night. News of the incident spread rapidly throughout nearby villages. Passengers stopped using the station. Railway workers began requesting transfers. Vendors abandoned their stalls. Fear consumed Begunkodor. Desperate for help, the station master eventually contacted a local spiritual practitioner. The old man listened carefully before agreeing to visit the station. One evening, after sunset, he performed a ritual near the tracks. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the air became unnaturally cold. A foul smell filled the station. And out of the darkness calmer, the woman appeared. The spirit stood silently on the tracks. The practitioner demanded to know why she refused to leave. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she finally spoke. Her voice sounded broken, painful, filled with anger. I died here, double quotes karma. I begged for help, double quotes. But nobody came. The spirit believed she had been abandoned. She believed the station had allowed her to die alone. And because of that hatred, she wanted everyone to suffer. The practitioner tried to calm her. He tried to convince her to move on. But the spirit refused. Her rage had grown too powerful. Realizing the danger, the practitioner ended the ritual and warned the station master, "Leave this place immediately." But the station master hesitated. He had spent years building his career. He couldn't bring himself to abandon everything. Days passed, then weeks. For a short time, the spirit disappeared. Everyone hoped the nightmare was over. They were wrong. 15 days later, she returned. Late one night, violent knocking echoed through the station master's quarters. The station master and his wife woke instantly. Before they could react, a familiar voice came from outside. "You were warned." Fear consumed the room. The knocking became louder, more violent. The door shook, wood splintered. Then karma. The door burst open. What happened next was never fully explained. The following morning, railway workers discovered the station master and his wife dead inside their quarters. The investigation found no clear answers, no suspects, no evidence, no explanation, only fear. After their deaths, panic spread throughout the region. Employees refused to work there. Passengers refused to travel there. Trains stopped stopping at the station. Some train drivers even claimed they still saw a woman in white running alongside moving trains at night. The fear became so intense that Begunkodor Railway Station was eventually shut down, and it remained abandoned for decades. Nearly 40 years later, authorities reopened the station, but even today, strange stories continue to surround the location. Many locals avoid the station after dark. Some railway workers refuse to stay there at night, and travelers still whisper about the woman in the white sari, the woman who died alone on the tracks, the woman who never forgave the station. And according to those who claim to have seen her karma, she's still there, waiting in the darkness, watching every train that passes, listening for the sound of footsteps, and searching karma for the help she never received. So tell me karma, do you think the legend of Begunkodor Railway Station is only a story? Or do you believe that some spirits never truly leave the place where they died? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember karma, not every abandoned place is empty.